Hey everyone, I'm going to give you a quick update. It's January 23rd, and we started doing the calls in sets like 50 early and then 50 later in the afternoon and then 100 at night. So we started doing that. We're just testing out what's creating the right kind of stability is really the answer there in DTMF navigation. So like going through phone menus and hitting one for sales, two for support kind of thing, or one for this guy, two for that lady, or one for this company and two for that company, all that kind of combination, right? Even when you want to leave a voicemail, sometimes you have to like press 5 to leave a voicemail. So doing all that has been pretty tricky, and we kept making adjustments, and we'd fix some things and others would seem to fall back. And then we make some other adjustments and we get different results, but we were never getting the scales to balance. They would keep tipping and tipping until very recently. And then we discovered a setting that we misunderstood that I'm going to show you actually that caused that to get fixed. So what happened, just real quick, this is just, a set of pages that we have here. And I'm going to walk over here and just take one of these on. So we've been leaping up and down and just seeing up and down, like I say, like tipping the scales. And some things would improve while other things would flag, while other things would improve, while other things would flag. We're like, what the heck? And in the end, take a look at what you see. Going up, going up, going up, and going up all at the same time. And that by itself is what I wanted. I wanted to create consistency and then, of course, a rise. And this is two things happening. One's consistency, the other's a rise. Now, the reality check is we're kind of skipping the consistency and just going into the rise. The idea of consistency should be inherent with the rise. Okay, what happened there? Let me just go through the two things I was talking about in the last recording. In order to get consistency, we had to create a situation where the phone numbers would not get hit with spam so that they would show up calling people saying spam likely all the time or scam likely. So here's the before and after. Here's what it looked like. We'd have the calls would go out, then the calls would go out, and then all of a sudden, the very next round, the calls would be dropping like this. And the question is, why was it good and then all of a sudden not? And then even worse, right? The follow-up calls is because the calls weren't working the first time around. They weren't like getting anywhere, and we try them again. And then we just stop after that. We just, if it doesn't work twice, don't even try back. And we go through these. It's like, what the heck? So we get all these follow-up calls where we shouldn't have. Then what? Then about here, and notice there's a period of time here where we're like, hey, I think I know what the problem is. And that's when we went through and kind of proved it out. This is like just around the time of Thanksgiving. And what we found out was if we traded out the phone numbers because they were hit with spam likely or even scam likely, then all of a sudden our performance went way, way, way back up. We didn't hardly have any follow-up calls. And we said, we need to create a process for that. Now, getting from here to here took a long time. We got from November 26th to January 15th just to get from here to here. Why? Because we had to program in a way to automatically swap out the phone numbers whenever necessary and release the old ones. We don't want to just swap them out but keep holding on to the old ones. We're going to be paying for tons of phone numbers that we aren't even using. So it was a lot of programming, especially around the holiday season, right? So many things got in the way, and that's what slowed us down. But once the programming was done, look at the beauty of this. Round after round after round after round. And even today, we just did a partial round so far because it's halfway through the day, basically. But no follow-up calls anymore. What's that mean? We got it under control. So what's that look like? In our charts, that we're actually tracking the fraud score. 65 is fine, 85 sucks, 85 causes a release to happen and a replacement of the phone number with a new phone number. So now the old phone number is just sitting here as an archived record until we drop it. The new phone number somewhere down here is going to be that same thing again, but with a lower, like this one here. No, not that one, some other one. It's down here somewhere. Anyway. The point is we trade out the phone numbers by checking them for spam before we even start the calls, right? No reason to do 50 calls or 100 calls with a fraud score of 85 if you can first swap out the phone number and get back down to where you should be, which is 65 or less. And yeah, there are numbers in here with fraud scores of 0. Okay. And again, that was part of what we had to do. We had to programmatically check new numbers we wanted to buy because the fraud scores are all over the place on numbers you can buy. Two numbers can look pretty much the same. It can be an area code like 559-272-4417. Another one could be 559-139-2842. You know, one of them that you could buy for $1.15 a month, the rental for the phone number is the same as the other one for $1.15 a month. You could choose this one or that one. They're both set in the same city. They're both available for you to purchase. But guess what? One has a higher fraud score than the other. Aha, way higher fraud score than the other. So it does matter which one you buy, right? If you get one that has a fraud score of 85 because somebody else just released it because it wasn't useful to them anymore, they may not have even understood that it was a fraud score. All they know is that process wasn't working anymore. They gave it up and then they released the number back into the system. Well, if I want to scoop it right up because it's in a city I want, maybe San Francisco, then I'd have to scoop up the fraud score, right? And start with it. Well, I don't want to do that. So part of the way that we made everything great was by checking the fraud score of the new phone numbers. Usually we have to check like 100 before we choose one, okay, for each thing that we want. It's crazy. But if you do that, that's how we have this kind of perfection that we have now. So this was the old problem finally getting understood and discovered, and then automation took time. But now this automation's doing a perfect job all the time. That's beautiful. It means if we scale to 1,000 calls a day, 2,000 calls a day, we're not going to be having this problem with 1,000 calls a day or 2,000 calls a day. We're going to have this scenario here with 1,000 calls a day or 2,000 calls a day, okay? And whatever more. Okay, that could be per industry. So here you go. We're doing so much better. Now, other things I thought were interesting because it's just interesting to know, right? I want to make these points. So aside from the phone numbers, what else? Okay. Aside from the phone numbers, here's something we did that's so cool. On all of these lead qualification demos that I sent you, the lead qualifications, we're starting to attach them to websites, but we put something in here so that we can show this off to potential clients. It's a secret password, okay? Anytime during the call, like if you call and you're playing along, you're pretending that you really did get hit with a DUI, okay? So you landed on a website, did some reading, you call the phone number. It's going to handle you nicely. It's really going to handle you well. Whether it's victim from getting hit by a car, DUI, garage door issue, is somebody slammed into the garage door when they came home, or any other number of reasons, or just the garage doors are not operating anymore, rusty rollers and runners, who knows? But whatever your problem is, whether you're a locksmith, when you call any one of those lead calls, then you can have a perfectly normal conversation and it'll tell you it'll get somebody out to you or it'll get somebody to give you a call, depending on the industry, depending on the situation. Having said that, guess what else? We put in a secret password. If anytime during the call you intentionally say, this is a demo, okay, this is a demo, it will stop and say, that is the magic password. And then it'll ask you for your phone number and or email so that it can send you that lead, right, when you're done. So once it has that information and confirms it with you, it goes right back into the call, all right? It makes sure to pick up where it left off and continue to ask the questions, etc. The point of that is if we're reaching out and telling DUI lawyers that we pre-qualify leads, and they go, how do you pre-qualify leads? What does that mean? Well, we can give them a rundown. We can say we know their age. We know whether it's their first offense or multiple offenses. We know whether anyone's injured. We know whether there's been property damage. You know, we can say all that. But one cool thing to do is say, just listen yourself. You know, call here, play along, and anytime during the call, say, this is a demo. That way you can see what the lead notification is going to be like when it's sent to you. What's the cool thing about that? That would-be clients, prospects, can actually feel the reality of it when they actually call and pretend that it's them and they create the craziest case possible. They're 16, but it's their third DUI offense. They had a .18 BAC level. They ran over some guy on the street who's in the hospital who might be dead. They slammed their car into the side of somebody's house while they were sleeping in the bed. They got injured. The guys who were with them ran off. I don't care. And so there are no witnesses except for the guys in the hospital. Whatever craziness. Then when the guy gets the lead notification and it spells it out like that, they see the familiarity. It's recognizable immediately. By email, by phone, they're like, this is what this is like. So if I'm in on this, then I get access to this. Do you get it? So it's a really cool way of reassuring prospects what they'll get. Now, we can do this with all the industries and anything else we set up, even for other prospects in totally different industries or for totally different businesses of their own. We can set all this up and we can let them see what the demo is like. So that's just a cool feature we built in. That's one thing I wanted to point out. Now I want to point out some other things. One problem that we all know, besides latency, when you're talking to an assistant is what? And by assistant, I mean AI assistant. When you're talking to one of these guys on the phone, what's the biggest problem? Is that as soon as you so much as clear your throat or you put your hand on the table and it happens to bump something, what happens? The assistant quits talking because it thinks you interrupted it, and it doesn't say anything for a second or two, and now it gets awkward. You start to say something while it starts to say something, and then you both stop and wait for the other, right? And then it seems to get a little lost because it's trying to figure out where to pick up, right? And it's trying to understand what that bump meant. Did it mean I don't agree, or did it mean yes or no, or what? And so it's trying to continue. One thing we were able to build in, and this is huge, is the number of words it takes to interrupt the assistant. It shouldn't be 0. Should it now? Number of words, we built all this stuff, guys, right? Number of words to interrupt the assistant is, let's say, 4. And the reason for that, if you think about it, is pretty obvious, right? Because then the guy has to adamantly or, very directly interrupt the assistant to say something, okay? So only then will the assistant stop. And yes, it hears all 4 words. It heard it, even when it was speaking. Because remember, the actual processing of the print is what the assistant did. The speaking is a second whole layer that's separate from that. But what's the assistant doing in the meantime? It's taking input. So anything else you say or do while it's speaking, it's taking in. In other words, what it printed to be spoken took just a millisecond or, a part of a second, right? 1/10 of a second. And then it speaks for 3 seconds or 4. While it's doing that speaking, it's not really doing anything. The speaking is just rolling its way out. It's like when you say, play this song, you just said, play this song. And then while the song is playing, you can listen to anyone say anything to you, right? Well, that's exactly the way it is with assistants. So by building in number of words to interrupt the assistant, then the assistant hears you while you speak, but at the same time, it takes several words for you to throw the assistant off. If you don't cause what it thinks of as 4 words, like you dropped something, cleared your throat, said, excuse me, right? Something out of the way, all of a sudden, right in a row. If you don't do that, then it will not interrupt the assistant. The assistant will keep doing its job. It'll register that you did 1, 2, or 3 things, but it won't change its tactics. It won't switch to inquisitive mode to see what you're saying now, unless you clear that hurdle of like 4 words, which I find works great. I mean, the guy on the other end of the phone probably will start getting quiet if you say 4 words, even a human. But if you just bump something and say, whoops, in the background, then that shouldn't stop the speaker from answering, right? So huge. That has to do with stuff like this. Believe it or not, that has to do with stuff like this, getting the scores to go up. Guess what else? We misinterpreted something that was huge. Temperature. The temperature is used to control the randomness of the output. When you set it higher, you'll get more random outputs. When you set it lower, towards 0, the values are more deterministic. If you set it too low, you're going to have a problem with the monotone, right? Like the system doesn't know how to say something, and it wants to say it at the same time all the time, so it'll say it with no emotion. But here's what we misunderstood. We thought this had only to do with how it spoke, the way it spoke, the, how much variability it throws in, whether it says good afternoon or good day, whether it says, doesn't that sound great or does that sound good to you? Okay. We thought temperature had to do with how it spoke, to some degree the emotion, and to some degree the word selection. You know what though? We found this out ever so recently, and this also has to do with this. Jeez. That's this. Temperature controls how it comprehends what to do in phone menus. In other words, the randomness even comes down to when it hears choices over the phone, like choose one for this, two for that. How should it act? How's this? Press 1 for Mike or 2 for Bob. You know what it might do? Press 1, 2. And then 1, 2 might be an invalid choice because the phone menu may accept 2 or 3 digit presses. Does that make sense? So then because it's an invalid choice, the assistant will try again. 2, 3 instead of 1, 2. Do you get how it can get lost in the weeds? And so temperature had a lot to do with that because pulling it down caused it to do the same thing. And because it started doing the same thing more, what were we able to do? We were able to see what it was misinterpreting and give it better prompts. Like, listen for 2 options, press 1 for Mike, 2 for Bob. If you hear 2 equivalent options, just choose the first one. Or just choose the most likely one. Never choose both. Okay? So because we could see what it was doing, we could control that. So temperature shouldn't be like 0.7. It should be more like 0.4, more like 0.3 maybe. We still got to verify, like, I don't know if I'll like 0.3 because it's also going to affect how it speaks. But the fact of the matter is I think 0.4 is going to turn out to be our happy spot. We'll see. But that could be the sweet spot for all of this. Anyway, all of the point of all of that is why. Because it gets us to the point where we've perfected the entire process. We've got knowledge bases for things, key reminders for lead qual. Leads are not lead buyers. Don't confuse them, right? Sometimes it would switch from one line of discussion to another, and it would switch from, oh, you're a lead to, oh, you're a lead buyer. No. Somebody who calls and says, hey, I got a DUI ticket. I need to get a lawyer. Isn't getting DUI leads, isn't looking for 5 DUI leads a week or 10, right? They're not looking for that. And catch all instructions, and then there's more. So we got all this stuff going. We got functions, advanced. We have all this stuff happening the way we want it to happen. Just different things in the different systems, like booking an appointment, checking availability, whether we are able to use the calendar functions, transfer call functions. So there's that. Now there's one more thing we did, and we just finished it, and so we're verifying it. We've been building something, a process that allows us to switch automatically from one assistant to another, even on the same phone number. So we don't need someone to call back. Say we call outbound and we're saying to somebody, hey, interested in signing up for our system, and then we can get you some leads so that you can see what they're like, or anything like that. Say we're doing that because we're trying to hook them and get them in. Okay, that easy way in until we can do more advanced scripting, which will be very soon now, probably next week. We're going to be able to transition from offering free leads to offering free leads included with their first order. Okay, so having said that, what's the point? What happens if the guy says, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't have time for this now. Can you send it to an email? Okay, that should be scheduled and sent. By the way, we do that. Okay, what if they say, that sounds pretty good, but I'm just the person who answers the phone. You'll have to actually talk to one of the lawyers. How about you call Katie at this number and tell her? Oh, okay. So we should be able to get that into our system and make it happen. And that does happen. What about, this sounds great, but I don't have time to sign up for it right now. I realize you need 5 to 10 minutes to fill in the form, but I can't do it right now. Can we do this tomorrow? Okay, we need to be able to schedule that call for tomorrow, right? That happened. But what's another one? When somebody goes, hey, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do this now. Okay, please hold while I transfer your call. Now that is what needs to happen. Please hold while I transfer your call. Okay? And what does that do? It sends the person to a different assistant whose job is, one, to be able to start the conversation with a new voice, new sound, new style, be another person in our organization answering the phone. And two, it needs to know how things have gone so far so we can welcome the person. Say we were talking to Lauren and then the call got transferred. Please hold while I transfer your call. Then you have to have someone say, hi, this is whatever. This is Devin with Decrypt My Leads. Is your name Lauren? Is that right? You know, how are you doing today, Lauren? Right? It needs to be able to remember the conversation and continue from there. That functionality we just got done building in. It not easy stuff, but it exists now. So we can actually transfer calls within the organization depending on the person's needs. So we can make a whole workforce with different voices, with people doing different things and transfer calls. Now, many of those operations aren't necessary at all. If someone's a plumber, they don't need to get transferred over to the carpet cleaner department. So there's no reason to do that. If somebody's new and we're pitching them, there's no reason for them to make changes to their account because they're not in their account yet. So we don't need to swap them to that squad, that other assistant. But getting all this stuff to work efficiently is going on. And there are only a few connections that we needed to make that made real sense, but that is certainly one of them. From an outbound call to the questionnaire or form process to get somebody put into the system. Now, here's the best part in case I didn't explain it. We built a way to answer the person's questions over the phone for their industry, no matter what their industry is, anything in our system, and we've got a questionnaire for them, for that industry. And we actually ask them the questions over the phone, and then by getting their information, we can create their account in Decrypt My Leads with their information and text them a confirmation link, and they can like log in, they can hit the confirmation link to accept the account and just log in and start doing stuff, right? Making adjustments and so on, verifying everything makes sense in there, whatever. Add credits, buy more leads, whatever they want to do. And we got finally permission to send all the required notices. There are a number of hoops you have to leap through to prove to the companies where you're going to send SMSs out to people. You have to get approval to send anything that includes personally identifiable information and so on. These are things that have changed since last year. So we had to go through those processes, but we did. So we're able to tie all of this stuff together correctly. And 2FA, if somebody wants to log into their account, we send them a security code to prove that's them. All that, lead notifications that lead them into their account, lead them to see and be able to react quickly. All that stuff is done. And we figured out the settings, like I said, the temperature setting. So we pretty much got that exactly where we went. We figured out how to swap out the phones. So it is cool. Here's kind of where we're at right now, just to show you a bunch of things. A lot of calls we made, okay? A lot of calls that we made just testing this stuff out and going through the processes. okay? And going through, how is it that you break down the information, like even for voicemail, understanding how to leave a correct voicemail by industry and so on. So there's steps for things like this, okay? Test this, test that. And so we're looking through all the calls, all the user calls, and I've got a bunch of them that have been cool where people absolutely did want us to send them stuff. And so we've got this information set, and even people getting added in, for the emails and stuff to be sent to them so that they can have the information. Like very often, the front desk does not belong to the company. It turns out the front desk is just a call service that asks who you're trying to reach, which law firm or which lawyer, and they have those lists. So they can quickly attach you either to the exact lawyer, whichever law firm it's with, or the law firm, and send your call, whether you're a new client or an existing client, et cetera, et cetera. So call service centers usually handle this stuff, but they're not authorized to tell you that somebody wants more leads or not. But they would say, contact this person or send the information here or whatever. And we've got numbers, so we can call these people while emailing these people at the same time to get the information to them and to double prong hook them, right? Get them interested, get them to want to sign up. So just letting you know, all this stuff is coming together beautifully. It's really no joke at all. I love it. And there you have it. And that's the update for right now. I've got to run. But this week has been really good for tweaking like mad because we did start all the calls. And like I said, the most important thing in my estimation is exactly the way this looks right here. This was a goal. We haven't seen all four of these going up at the same time, so to speak. That one's more or less even, but kind of going up. But we haven't seen this, right, until now. And we got it. It's huge. So I love it. Oh, as a matter of fact, these are even adjusting a bit in real time simply because calls are going out right now. It's that time of the day. I love it. All right. Oh, yeah. Like the number went up slightly. We're gonna get more data as that fills in. Oh, I love it. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Yeah, things are moving. And I think next week's going to be a massive turning point. And once we're really happy with the way the model works on what I think is the hardest one, DUI, because it turns out that very often the front desk is not connected to the company and doesn't know anything about the company's needs or wants and is not authorized to decide on behalf of the company. So we have to go through those kinds of gatekeepers. Voicemails are easier, but many other industries are going to be simpler. There's going to be much more direct connections. And so doing all this is just great. This has been the hardest version to do it on. And after this, it's going to be easier. That's it. Well, all the other industries, probably, the majority anyway, are going to be easier and some are going to be this hard, but we're prepared for it now. We've been going through it at this level. So I think starting next week, we're going to get the rubber to meet the road. And as soon as we have guys reacting to our first offers, we get to improve our offers, dial them in, aim faster for the cash flow, and we'll be there. Okay. So yeah, ton of work. All the stuff I'm explaining to you is probably stuff you didn't imagine being necessary to get the job right. Neither did I. Just to be dead blunt, right? I didn't know. But we didn't kid around, man. We've been just literally busting ourselves left and right to make sure we understand how the stuff works out, right? And what it means, how well things have been going, why they're doing what they're doing, how this really helps us get where we're going. I love it. A success total of 32.79%. We have never seen that before. DTMF navigation success is now around 20% pretty consistently instead of floating between 12 and 18, that kind of thing. So yeah, we've been figuring it out. I'm really excited. All right. We'll talk after a while. You take care. We're close. Just letting you know. All right. Bye.